Okay, so today let's talk about various things to do with movies, and this is like a different microphone, so we'll see how it does in the car. This is like one of those Rode handheld wireless ones. And so, okay, let's look at one thing, the unfinished sequel, Godfather 3, what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to come out a lot sooner, right? It came out all the way in 1999 compared to like 74 for the second movie, and the plot was totally different. So why did that happen? This is like maybe a little known piece of trivia, but it is factual and pretty significant if you think about it. So why was the movie delayed that long, and why wasn't it as good as the first two? It's because Robert Duvall, Tom Hagen, was supposed to be the villain in the third movie, where he's trying to basically grapple power away from Michael and try to take over the family himself because he feels like Michael's doing a bad job and he doesn't deserve it. Right, it's kind of like that. Or at the very least, even if that interpretation didn't happen, it would still be him like trying to oppose Michael and try to stop him. But I think it was specifically, again, he's the antagonist and he's trying to grapple power away from Michael because he feels like he's taking it in the wrong direction. And, you know, that doesn't sound too crazy because if you look at part two, even in part one, there was some of this, but there's this undertone of Michael like freezing out Tom and sort of, you know, treating him a little at a distance. And so in the first movie, he says, "You're not a wartime consigliere, Tom." So he says, "You're out," towards the end of the movie when, and then I guess his dad almost is acting as his consigliere when he's going after like the heads of the five families. Right? Tom doesn't do that. His dad does. Like the planning, and Michael. And then the second movie, there's a ton of this subtext, like where why can't you, was it a boy? And then Tom is kind of dancing around it, and then about the abortion or the miscarriage at that point, and Michael yells at him and says, why can't you give me a straight answer? Was it a boy? And then he makes Tom sit out of the meeting with Johnny Ola, because he probably knows he'll oppose it and question things to do with Hyman Roth. So he doesn't want that rational side because he's just kind of fixated on that deal or whatever he wants to do, try to uncover who tried to kill him. I think that's before they even try to kill him, but whatever. He makes him sit out of the meeting with Johnny Ola, right? He's not part of that. He yells at him, "Was it a boy? Why can't you give me a straight answer?" Then towards the end of the movie, there's a few scenes like that where Tom says, to Frank Pentangeli, you know, Frank says, "We was like the Roman Empire. Corleone family was like the Roman Empire." And then Tom says it was once, to imply that like it's fallen from that point. And so now, again, it sets up perfectly that there's some animosity and tension there. There's also other scenes like you know, when Tom is questioning Michael at the end again. So Tom is like a very pacifist type of person and not a wartime consigliere, but Michael is ruthless and willing to do whatever it takes. So in that sense, what happens is at the end of the movie, he says, "You've won. What do you want to wipe everybody out?" And then Michael says, "I don't want to wipe everybody out. Just my enemies, that's all." So that sort of shows you the friction there, that Tom is not really happy with the direction. He thinks Michael is overdoing it, killing too many people, even killing Fredo. I don't think he says anything about that, but, you know, he's maybe unhappy about that too. So yeah, that friction and tension was set up very well for them to obviously have that go in the third movie. So it's almost undelivered on because you know, it was set up pretty well, and I think that was definitely intentional. I mean, it's still a good conflict within the story that there's some friction back and forth, and he's like the last almost voice of reason from his dad, like a more measured approach, even though his dad did tell him to kill the heads of the five families. That was something that maybe Vito didn't want to do himself, but, you know, it's a question of yeah, that set up perfectly. Again, there's a lot of tension there. It would have been a great outcome, that villain being very smart, Tom, and them kind of going back and forth. You can see a lot of that tension building up in the second movie especially. So unfortunately it wasn't delivered upon because, oh yeah, the reason why is because Robert Duvall, because of that significant role as the main antagonist, would have wanted as big a paycheck as Al Pacino, which, I mean, again, after you've made so much money from the first two movies, I would have gladly given it. Sure, take whatever you want. Fine, we'll give you as much as him because you're going to be a significant character. You deserve it. You've been a part of the movie's success, the first two. So, I don't see you really ruin it over that, like whatever amount of money Al was getting, which is probably a lot. You really ruin it and cost one of the best movies of all time for being made, because then when it finally is made, it's not very good. Part 3, it's not bad actually, but it's just sort of disjointed and unnecessary. And then what else did I want to talk about? I wanted to do like this semi roast of the first movie. I did this before, like where I made fun of certain aspects, like let's see if I can remember all of them, like how to make critics love your movie, the Godfather edition. And I was sort of making fun of it, but start your movie with, oh, I believe in America, like some patriotic thing, like, oh, how can you not like that, where Buenos Aires saying it. And then some of the kills are kind of a little clunky, not even by today's standards, but they're sort of over dramatic, or like, they'll be slowly in frame, like Mo Green looks up slowly and then the guy shoots him in the eye, and then like it's a little done for effect, but sometimes it's a little too much, right? Just sort of ostentatious just to show a cool kill or whatever. There's like a really goofy scene where the guy in the toll booth, when Sonny's about to die, he drops like a coin and then he bends down, and it's like, oh, because he's in on it and he knows. Like, that scene should be a meme. Just like, oh, whoops, I dropped a coin and you're about to get fucking slaughtered by 50 people. But what's funny about that is if you look at that scene later on, that same booth that he's in has holes all over it to show that bullets went through it, and he would have still died even if he was on the ground. So what did he do? Like, crawl away? Because we can see that the whole time and we don't see him like go off screen. So he closes that and then goes on the ground. So either he dies too, and we don't see him get up after or whatever. It's just such a troll thing. Like, oh, whoops, I dropped this coin. And then he closes the window and then the hit starts. Like, it's so goofy. The way it just looks so stupid. But no, it's like, he's, he would have gotten killed too, or maybe he just crawls away off screen, or maybe he does something else, but they're shooting right in that direction anyway, so just simply getting on the ground might not have helped you. Some of those bullets would have gone through because they're shooting in full force. And there's some stupid lines too, like, that make it seem like you're trying to build stuff up, but like, Sollozzo is supposed to be, Tom Hagen says this to the Don when they're discussing Sollozzo. Sollozzo is supposed to be good with a knife, except in matters of business, or wait. No, he says, Sollozzo is supposed to be pretty good with a knife, but only in business with some sort of reasonable complaint. In matters of business with some sort of reasonable complaint. So it's like, why would you need to mention that? Oh, he's good with a knife. Who cares if he's good with a knife? Wouldn't you assume that every gangster is good with a gun? Like, they're gangsters, they're good with guns. Do you say that about every gangster? Oh, he's supposed to be good with a gun. Like, the fact that he's good with a knife is totally irrelevant to anything. Why would you care about that? It's just to foreshadow that scene of him stabbing Luca Brasi, but who cares? Like, yeah, he's good with a gun, he's good with a machete, he's good with a bat, like, it's totally an unnecessary line. Why would the Don need to know that or care about that? Right, that's one of the clumsiest lines to me in honestly the whole movie. It doesn't seem that bad, but why the hell would you say that? We're discussing a cordial business deal, like, okay, should we do this deal or not? With this guy, should we do drugs? Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, but why does that come up? Right, it's like, you don't have any conflict with him yet, right? You have nothing against him. He's supposed to be good with a knife. It's like, why do we need to know that? We're not trying to fight him yet. This is way before, the conflict begins. So it's to foreshadow that, oh, there's going to be conflict, and it's to foreshadow that, oh, he's going to kill Luca Brasi partly with a knife. It's like, It's just not a detail that you would ever mention. It makes no, yeah, like the Don would say, okay, cool, he's good with a knife. So what? What am I supposed to do with that information? Again, he's a gangster. Like, you would assume, oh, is he good with a gun? Is he good with a, like, does he know martial arts? Is he a black belt too? Like, why the fuck would you need to know that? Yeah, he's good with a gun, so he's gonna shoot us like any other gangster we'd expect to do. Like, it's such an unnecessary detail. And then there's another similarly stupid line with the Don when he says about Santino's death. He says Tatalia's a pimp. He never could have outfought Santino. So that's why it was Barzini all along. The problem with that is, what do you mean outfought? He went by himself. His guards were like trailing behind, but he didn't tell them because he's a bit of a clown hothead. So he goes by himself, and then he gets shot up by 50 people. Guess what could have also happened? One person could have shot him up, given the way it was shown. Like, he was getting out of his car or something. He didn't even take out a gun. He didn't even, he probably had a gun, but like, Tattaglia could have never outfought Santino. That would have only happened if his guards were with him. Then they had to fight through the guards and then do it. Okay, fine. We don't actually see Sonny. Yeah, see, that's kind of a missed opportunity too. By today's standards, I'm not saying he has to have like an action movie hero sequence, but he should take out a couple guys to show like, oh, what a great fighter he is, right? He pulls out a gun and he shoots like 2 guys and gets them, and then he gets shot down. Instead, it's just like he just gets blasted and he can't do anything, right? So there's not enough of that, like, sort of, again, I'm not saying he has to be action hero and take out everybody and win that encounter, but do something to show, okay, that was impressive, you had something up your sleeve. So yeah, that line's dumb. He could have never outfought Santino, but like, why not? What did Santino do? He's one dude by himself, totally vulnerable, right? Anybody could have had 2 guys come up and shoot him. So outfought in what way? They're not fighting him hand-to-hand combat. There's 20 guys with guns. Like, maybe even saying that much muscle would be hard for Tattaglia to muster, although I don't see why, because he's a big head of a family. But just that line makes no sense. Oh, this big mob boss wouldn't be able to outfight one random dude in his car sitting there at the toll. Like, outfought how? Santino didn't even fight. He was just there and just got killed. Like, there's no fight. You're acting like, oh, there was some big gunfight and Santino took out 10 guys and, oh, wow, only Barzini's men could have handled him. Like, you're building him up like he's an action hero, but he doesn't do shit. And again, even his bodyguards aren't there, so it makes even less sense. Like, okay, so Barzini could send 20 guys and shoot him up, but Tattaglia couldn't have done the exact same thing. Just send 10 guys, just send 5 guys if he has less of a force. Like, again, Santino doesn't do anything. He doesn't kill anybody. He doesn't fight anybody. He doesn't resist. He doesn't, get away from that. He just gets killed. So, yeah, that line's kind of dumb. There's a mistake with, like, the wine glass. It's, like, an editing mistake where, like, Tom, with Walls, the director, and he's, like, he serves him the glass of wine, and then the shot changes, and then they're pouring the wine glass again, like, twice in like, 2 seconds. So that's, like, an editing mistake that actually made the final cut. And then, what else? The Apollonia sequence I criticized a little bit. I think that's the weakest part of the movie. It feels a little bit unnecessary. Just like, let's just show off this cool parts of Italy, Sicily, whatever, just because we can. That's what it almost feels like. Oh, let's just get some of this, like, vacation and almost showy, artsy photography and stuff in there. But why, it doesn't add a whole lot to the story. It's kind of almost, that's the part where you get up and go to the bathroom, and that's like the intermission, and that's why the movie's so long, and it just felt kind of unnecessary. Right, like, we get that he's in hiding, but we didn't need to see all that stuff. And, like, Apollonia dying, like, he meets Apollonia, he goes in hiding, then he meets Apollonia, then they get married, then she dies, all in, like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So it's like, what's the point of that? It just happens so fast. We don't really establish much value to it. There's a superfluous nudity scene where she shows her breasts. That whole part of it felt kind of dumb. that part of the story. It's not even entirely consistent with Michael's character, where he almost would have been the type to wait for Kay, and he's kind of a goody two-shoes type at that point. Like, it could show you he's becoming a bit jaded, but and like I don't like the implication that, oh, the death of Apollonia is what turns him so cold and rough. I would like to think that was happening anyway, or he understood that's what he had to do to avenge his father and to deal with the kind of people he's dealing with. You know, I would have been fine with accepting that, because I don't really think the Apollonia death should have been the trigger of that, but in part, obviously, that's how it's written. But even without that event, I would have said, okay. Or, you know, in another type of movie, it would have been, you wouldn't have introduced, you know, it's sort of like cheating the thing. We need like a major character development trauma moment, but we're not going to kill Kay because, oh no, we have to have the sequel and we have all this like based in the book. So we're going to introduce a love interest and kill the love interest quickly just so that we can have this trauma and, you know, moment of change for the character. But then we're going to keep Kay around too as the love interest. So you want to have your cake and eat it too. We want to have the love interest still in the story, but we also want to give you a bereaved lover that we can use just as a prop to say, oh, this is why he's a little bit edgy now and he's going to do all this stuff. Like, right, you introduce a character only to kill her like 20 minutes later, and it's like it has very little impact that way. That part of the movie is a little bit slow and not that valuable to me. The point is he's in hiding, and that's all we need to know. Like, just show him he's in hiding, that's it. Then he comes out of hiding, like, that's it. But one of the major flaws of the movie that is actually pretty fair to bring up is the fact that a lot of the characters are just sort of named and seen like very briefly, but we don't get much impact or value or knowledge of them. You can say, oh, you're expected to know it from the book or read the book. But like, let's look at it this way. That big revelation, oh, Tatalia's a pimp. He never could have outfought Santino. That's how I knew it was Barzini all along. So that's supposed to be like a big revelation for the audience. Oh, it wasn't Tatalia, it was Barzini. Now I guarantee you a lot of people didn't even distinguish or care too much or know too much who they were. You might say, oh no, that's just your fault or whatever. But for a movie that's considered one of the best of all time and all this, which it is, you know, I'm not being edgy by even doing all this. Like, I'm just roasting some of the flaws. It's not perfect, but obviously it is all-time great. Like, we see Bruno Tattaglia killing Luca Brasi. We see Philip Tattaglia, I think, is the main boss, right? Who's there at the meeting of the heads of the five families. And then we see Barzini at the meeting of the heads of the five families. And then we also see Barzini at the beginning, you know, the opening party scene that, you know, destroying the camera and stuff like that. So my point is, how much would you distinguish? Oh my goodness, it wasn't Tattaglia, it was Barzini instead. Like, we know it has significance to the Don, and he considered him more of a friend, but to the audience, that to me has very little impact and weight. That's not much of a twist, because, oh, Barzini was the guy who we saw in like 2 scenes in the whole movie and was barely mentioned and talked about. And same thing with Tattaglia, who's chosen like 0 scenes in the movie or like 1 scene right up to that point. So why is that a big revelation? Like, one character that we barely saw and barely know and people would barely be able to identify or care about, right, versus another. So I think that twist holds very little weight to us. Again, there needed to be a couple little scenes peppered in there. Barzini does something positive. Barzini saves somebody's life, like, you know, has one of his men do something positive, and then you feel like, okay, we trust this guy. They didn't establish enough from that. So again, we're supposed to consider these like 2 major characters. Like, Elite Sollozzo has more presence. Sollozzo is more like the main antagonist to me, who's like, you know, he really has good presence and a couple good scenes. Barzini isn't much of an antagonist because you hear his name a couple times. Mo Green mentions him. You know, you mention him with Carlo, you know, who was it, Tattaglia or Barzini? Michael's asking Carlo. and all this. But as far as actually seeing him, again, you see him once in the beginning party scene, just like destroying a camera and stuff like that, very briefly. Then you see him at the meeting of the heads of the 5 families. That's it. That's literally it. Like, super brief. He doesn't have much dialogue, in the party scene. Very brief. He has a little bit of dialogue in the meeting of the heads of the 5 families, but that's it. And that's when the revelation happens. So you would have had one scene, one minor little scene at the party to work with the whole movie to establish that, oh, this guy's a good guy, or he's like the Don's friend, or, that he's somebody to be trusted by them, or just to have any profile of him, even as building him up as an antagonist, like, oh, what a great villain. Barzini, like, nobody says that. Oh, Barzini is one of the greatest villains in movie history. No, you would say Michael even if you want to say anti-hero or whatever. It's like, nobody really cares about Barzini. So it's stuff that they either expect you to know from the book, or it's just something that's not developed well enough. There could have been a couple scenes, again, in there. You show Barzini just doing something, doing his daily work. You show him doing something positive, even that helps the family, or just doing his own thing. Like, just give us a scene or two in the middle, just where it seems like he's innocent or he's not doing anything wrong. So he seems like a positive figure. But yeah, we barely see any of that. We don't see any of the Tattaglias. We see Bruno Tattaglia helping to kill Luca Brasi. And then I think Sonny says, we hit Bruno Tattaglia 5 o'clock this morning or whatever, right? So they kill him. I think he's the son of Philip Tattaglia. If I'm remembering that, I don't know if it's Philip for sure, but then we see him at the party, or at the meeting of the heads of the 5 families. So we see each of them in like 1 or 2 scenes, but these are supposed to be significant antagonistic type characters that, wow, there's like a big revelation and this and that. Like, to me, that's not much of a revelation. Now, you might use outside sources and say, oh, well, the book gives more detail, or based on this and that, we can obsess over it. But based purely on the movie itself, I think it fails on that particular area. Barzini is not that present in the movie, so we don't think of him much at all. Nobody really cares. Some of the audience members might not even be able to identify, well, I guess you would have just seen it in the meeting, but still, like, outside of the meeting scene, you wouldn't even know, like, oh, who is that guy again? Who is Barzini? You barely even know who he is because you've seen him in one moment at the beginning of the movie. That's it. He's mentioned maybe once or twice, but so yeah, that part is weak. And then just in general, a lot of the characters that are just named that we don't really get to see or appreciate, like, I don't know, the Molinari family on the coast guarantees Fredo's safety. Like, who the fuck is that? We don't know. Or Strachey, Cuneo, those are some of the people being killed as the heads of the 5 family. But, like, these are just figures that, oh, we're just supposed to know who these people are, or, they don't really have much presence in the story, so we keep hearing, like, references to stuff that are, like, these sort of named characters that we never really see, or we don't get any substance with, or it doesn't mean anything to us, right? It's just a random name. So they throw out a lot of those random names that we're supposed to know from the books, or we're just supposed to understand through context who they are, but a lot of those characters don't have much significance because it's just a random name. They're just throwing out random names, name-dropping characters that we don't know, we've never seen, we get no scenes of them. Like, I'm sure there's other examples too, but see, like, at least a proper name drop is like in the sequel when Hyman Roth's talking about Mo Green, but at least we know who Mo Green is when we've seen him in the first movie, right? But unlike that, there's a lot of characters like, again, Strachey, Cuneo, those are probably at the meeting of the 5 families, but I can't even place exactly, and they're killed in like the montage, obviously, but and you would think there would have been more of like attempt at revenge against Michael for killing the heads of the 5 families. Like, everybody's maybe afraid, but you know, some of those people would be like, oh shit, the head of our family just died, so we're gonna all work together and take revenge. But they play on the strength of, like, everybody thinks Michael doesn't really know what he's doing, or he's a newbie and he's like easy to take advantage of, and so that sets him up perfectly to be killed. They're just not expecting it. But then again, the way it happens isn't like they're all in the same place. They literally just go to where they are in their apartment or something, you know, sleeping with a girl and stuff like that, and just kill them. It's like, by that logic, you could just do that anytime, you know. Or Barzini's killed, like, going up the steps or something. So yeah, there's, again, a lot of these named characters. The Molinari family on the coast guarantees Fredo's safety. A lot of these other heads that are mentioned. I'm sure there's other examples I just can't remember. A ton of characters who get very little screen time, very little presence, including even Barzini, even Tatalia, even the mother, right, Michael's mother. So there's a lot of characters that are sort of just there, which that's fine too, but it's just like, again, certain ones that are just named and off screen and we don't even hear about them. We're either supposed to know who they are from the book, or we're supposed to just gather from context and just accept that, but that doesn't hold a ton of significance then. Even like the Clemenza and Tessio thing isn't that strong because, you know, obviously which one betrayed us. They build that sequence up, but you don't see enough of Tessio, really. You see a decent amount of Clemenza, like where he's cooking the food and he's talking to Michael, and I don't remember too many scenes of Tessio. The main one I remember, aside from the ones at the end where he's actually revealing himself as the traitor at the funeral and stuff, is like talking about taping the gun behind the toilet and all that. Like, right, that scene where he helps to come up with that idea, and then the other scene where he's like, that's really the only scene that he's imploring the Godfather, along with Clemenza, can we break off and make our own family? And yeah, Clemenza catches a sneak diss like, oh, Tessio was always smarter, so you're calling Clemenza dumb. That's why he stayed loyal to you even when shit was going down. What else? Like, that's the general roast. Again, the Apollonia sequence is a bit overrated and overlong and sort of you know, you could just leave that out of the movie. Like, I'll make an edit of it and just like show the beginning of it, and then that's it. They're like, oh, he's in Sicily, he's in hiding, and then he leaves and the car blows up, and it wasn't his wife, it was just some random person, and just to show that they were trying to kill him. And then there's that deleted scene in the part 2 where he does kill Fabrizio. He's like outside a pizza shop or whatever. But yeah, some of the kills are a little bit goofy looking, to be fair. The Mo Green one kind of bugs me. Like, it just looks kind of slow and kind of awkward. And then they try to make them look all exciting and stuff, but a real mobster kill, frankly, would be like very dull and boring. It'd just be like, you wouldn't even see it coming. It would just happen, be done with it very quickly. They don't really dispose of the bodies. They just kind of leave them there. So what other movies could we do? Like the Truman Show. Like, let me go through like, oh, my 3 favorite movies of all time. The Truman Show, Amadeus, and Sleuth. And obviously those two, Amadeus and Sleuth, are a bit of a companion piece to each other because they are written by the brothers Peter and Anthony Schaefer. maybe the original Nolan brothers, like Jonathan and Christopher Nolan, but both very good writers too. But they're also both plays, so those were plays that they wrote and then they became a movie. So Sleuth is good as like an entertainment detective, detective mystery type, suspense, all of this, like a mind game type of story. So it fulfills that sort of itch if you like detective and mystery type stories. And it also, battle of wits sort of thing. But it also has some class war stuff going on, some little subtle undertones. It has one of the greatest performances of all time, in my opinion, by Laurence Olivier, who obviously was more of a stage actor, but that was a great performance that he gives. Kind of going in between all these different characters that he's written in his stories, he's a writer, or just different references that he's making. Like the first time I saw the movie, I almost didn't understand what was happening with him. He just would go into these weird voices and impressions and so he's like doing these little in-jokes or little references to his own stories or references to other stories. He keeps making these little, I didn't understand a lot of what he was talking about. Right, but that's still, it stuck with me, and then you watch it again and you understand, or some of these are references and, maybe things of the time that would make more sense at the time, but also just, again, he's a big fan of, it'd be like today if a character like that was written, you'd be constantly referencing memes and, little brain rot type stuff. So he was referencing the brain rot of the time, or just different, little things from, I wish I could remember some of them, like, he's giving Milo some costumes to wear, and he's doing like this little role play and stuff. So the way he phases in and out of those moments is so majestic, because like I said, when the first time I saw the movie, I didn't even understand what was going on with that. I just couldn't even follow it, because he was doing it very naturally, but I didn't get like why is he doing this, what is he doing. But he's like, again, he's like a games playing type of addict of all this fiction and creativity, so he loves that sort of thing. So he's obsessing over it, and these are all his little passions that he brings out, that he's trying to constantly share. So, and that's part of the theme of the whole story, that he like can't turn it off in a way, like he's desperate to do this like games playing creative stuff. But yeah, that's one of the great performances there. Again, great dynamic kind of duel between the two characters, battle of wits. So that one succeeds on just the surface level of the entertainment and the depth of the performance, right? It's not really too existential or meaningful outside of that, the way that the other two movies in my top three are. So this would maybe be the weakest of the three, even though it's still one of my favorite. I mean, again, I just go by like how many times I've seen them. I've seen this at least 5 full times, but I've seen it probably more in bits and pieces. It's just so like perfectly entertaining. Right, there was almost no moment where I was bored, or even having seen it multiple times. It's hard to explain. Like there's just something like that. I could watch that movie 100 times and I never would get sick of it, and I just never. Right, it's a flow thing. I was almost waiting. Like, is there a moment that's gonna bore me? Is there a moment that's gonna be off? And that almost got to that point with the second game that they're playing, like towards the end, but. And I guess I'm sort of spoiling stuff, but whatever. But no, it was perfectly paced. It's really, really hard to explain. But the best way to explain it is, it just doesn't miss. Like the movie is consistently entertaining. It's consistently good. It's consistently just mesmerizing throughout. The performances, the dialogue, again, the class war sort of dynamic that you have going on there, the mystery, the intelligence battle of wits. Like that's a better back and forth than even you see with any like Sherlock Holmes movie or any detective story, right? That's the best back and forth ever that I've seen in a movie that way, like where two characters are getting at each other. And then Amadeus is more existential, because it's like the plight of the artist and this existential meaning that you find in something, whatever your passion might be, is like, for Salieri, it's music, and so he's jealous of Mozart, but it's deeper than just that. And he's having like this duel with God the whole movie, is how I describe it. He's having like this battle with God in his own mind, because to him God is music and represented by music, and so Mozart is like somebody sent to challenge him and show him up, and he feels like betrayed by his God. So it's like this very deep thing that maybe creative people and artists and people who are great at something can understand. It's not about just, oh, it's just music and that's nice and whatever, or it's not about the money that he's successful and that's my favorite thing about the movie, actually. If you actually look at the movie literally, it might not even make sense to you, and it might seem like, oh, it's just glazing Mozart, right? Like we're just glazing his music, but it's about something much deeper, because Salieri is the court musician. Salieri is very well respected. Salieri is rich, has those bags of coins that he's handing out. So Salieri is doing good financially. Everybody likes him. Everything's positive. And yet he's jealous of Mozart, who's poor and drunk and having all these negative, troubles in his life. So in reality, you would look at that and say, why is Salieri upset? He should be happy, and Mozart's suffering, and he even dies in the course of the movie, whereas Salieri is doing fine. But that shows you it's strictly psychological, and he's being very honest with himself, right? That he can only he can see truly how great Mozart is. Even the public likes him, but not at the level in hindsight that we see. So Salieri could just be happy with the approval of others and say, oh, I'm doing better for myself than Mozart is in the course of the movie and at that time. But in hindsight, or in foresight of Salieri, he's being honest and objective and saying, oh no, Mozart is better and I'm just a hack, even though, again, he's very good himself. It shows you that harsh objectivity that he doesn't care what other people think. He doesn't care about anything. He just knows it himself, right? That Mozart is better, and he's the only one who can. It reminds me of a line like by Vegeta in Dragon Ball, believe it or not, where he says, is that my fate, to be the only one strong enough to understand the depth of your power, as he's jealous of Goku, that he can never catch him, but he's strong enough to at least understand how strong he really is and appreciate it. That's the same thing with Salieri. Like, am I the only one, because of my own talent with music, who can truly appreciate Mozart at the highest level and do that? So he's being hard on himself. So it's like that existential drive that he has, this sort of duel with God. So that's what makes it existential, is like, it's not really about the music. It's not really about, right, the money or the fame or the creativity. It's like, that's his ultimate passion. To him, that's like the most important, meaningful thing in life. It sort of speaks to him at a certain level. And now that's all being challenged and thrown to the side. And so, I don't know, I feel like it perfectly sums up what fiction and creativity is about, where for the people who actually do it and are passionate about it, this is how intense it would be, that it's not just music. It's not just, oh, it's just Mozart, it's just this and that. It's so much bigger of a deal. And again, that sort of duo back and forth with his little game with God, this sort of battle against God in his own mind, sort of represents his own values. And I don't know, it's just, there's a lot of subtext to it. He keeps trying to sabotage Mozart. So, I don't know, it works at a very high level of this. He's battling not so much with Mozart himself, who never even finds out that he's after him or, jealous of him. He's battling with, again, his own idyllic impression of what an artist should look like, that he doesn't like Mozart's lifestyle, or, again, the elitism that he feels himself, that no matter how celebrated he is himself, he knows that Mozart's better. He's being honest and objective, and he's being tortured by that. And so it's like this aspiration that he can't live up to. So he calls himself at the end mediocre. I'm the patron saint of mediocrity. So it shows you like this obsessive elitist mentality that creative and exceptional people would have, that they're looking at it a different way. Anybody else would say, oh, I'm happy just to make a good living. Oh, I'm happy just to do this in the first place. Oh, I'm so lucky to be the court musician. But it shows you his obsessive, fanatical passion, that it's more than that. Like, that's his whole life, is music. And so again, Mozart is challenging all of that. And there's like this little hipster almost vibe to it that Milos Forman did with the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest too. It's like this rebel against the machine, rebel against the system, where you're trying to show up authority. And so in that sense, they turned Mozart almost into a rock star in that movie. Like, where, oh, look at him flaunting convention, and look at him, talking back to all the other court musicians, and look at him trying to do a play in a brothel, and you keep showing him in like this different way that's not necessarily historically accurate. That's one thing I'd criticize about it, is that it's not historically accurate at all. But yeah, look at him bucking the system and being this sort of rock star renegade, and this free spirit, rock star almost. So there's some of that. There's a lot of these little in-jokes and quips, like the emperor is always saying that, like, there it is, or it's not a holy relic. Like, there's just so much richness to it. But the biggest point is that, again, that conflict is very existential for that reason. It's not about money. Salieri is doing fine, doing better than Mozart. It's not about fame. He's the court composer. It's not about, not about fame, not about money, not about anything else. It's this deeper thing that almost nobody can even understand. Like, he asked for Mozart's wife to come over. He's not really sexually into her or doesn't do anything, but he's doing it to embarrass Mozart or somehow get at him. And yet, nobody would even understand. That's the thing. And she never, that's one kind of dumb thing though. She never tells Mozart about that. And yet she's still freaked out by Salieri at the end. And they never see each other from then till the end. Right, like, that's pretty hard to believe. Mozart and Salieri are around each other a lot, but his wife is never, I guess deliberately so, but is never around at that time. Like, that scene is just kind of hard to fit in there. But yeah, overall it's a very, very special thing. And again, even the musical scenes aren't really that big of its strength or deal to me. Like, they're well done, but that's not really what it's about to me. That's the beauty of it. Music is just the backdrop, but it's actually something much deeper. Like, I never would have expected that. That's the thing. Oh, it'll just be some little boring historical documentary about Mozart and that's it. But not only is it not historically accurate, really, it's also just, turning him into a drunkard and all this. Like, yes, he had some real life issues too, but the way they exaggerate it is really romanticized. So on that level, you could criticize it, and I would say, if it's a good movie, and it's obviously one of the best movies ever, one of my favorite movies, I wouldn't criticize it for being historically inaccurate necessarily, but also if you're going to name it Mozart or Amadeus, then it should be somewhat accurate. So you could criticize it that way. Same thing like Lawrence of Arabia. Even if it's a better movie as a result of not being accurate, what you could almost say is, okay, let's make up a fictional character's name like something else. It's going to be, his name is John Murray, and John Murray is based on Mozart, but we're going to exaggerate and take liberties with the story. So we can say it's based on him, but it's not actually him, and we're not going to use his music or whatever, and we can tell our own story. But instead of doing that, no, you're evoking Mozart, you're saying it's him, and now you're showing it in a historically inaccurate way. So in some ways that's disingenuous. Again, just say it's based on it, and then tell your own story and make up a character's name and make references. And then the other thing is the fact that, so again, that one's much more deeply existential. So again, Sleuth is a top favorite. I'll put that in the number 3 slot of, again, a great battle of wits, a great acting dynamic, a great atmosphere, great dialogue, little class war, subtle digs, subtext, right? A lot of little quips and great, in and out with the performances of Laurence Olivier, especially. Then Amadeus is like the story of elitism, exceptionalism, of art, of creativity, of, again, this duel with God that you're having in your own head that shows you like the existential passion that you have that defines your being that way. And then the Truman Show is one that I've talked about a lot in the past, but I'll make the case again that let's look at it on the level that people actually do look at it on. And I feel like people maybe don't get this, or maybe they do, but I maybe overthink it, but this is how I treat it. It's the fact that it's a great movie, it's entertaining, it's not too long, it's 90 minutes, so it's very well paced, it's entertaining throughout. Good performances, obviously, throughout. Jim Carrey, who even I almost avoided watching the movie for a long time because I thought, I stereotyped Jim Carrey. A lot of his movies are dumb and stupid comedy, so I didn't even know what it was going to be, and I almost avoided it for that reason. But then, again, it succeeds. Ed Harris is a good performance, a lot of good performances. So what happens is that... what is it? Oh, it's a satire on TV and reality TV, and it saw the future with all that celebrity culture and stuff. Yes, that's true, right? But it's so much more than that. So on that level alone, okay, it was prophetic about celebrity culture and reality TV and all this kind of cult of personality. Yes, that's true, and even like live streaming now and stuff like that. Yes, that's true, but that's only one part of it. The story isn't actually about Truman figuring out that he's part of a TV show, in my mind, and in my interpretation of what I've said in the past, as much as it's about a midlife crisis that he happens to be having. Because think about it. What happens in society? See, it's not just, it's about reality TV and that part of it, the celebrity culture, satire, and stuff like that. It's actually about life itself and society itself. So Truman is the everyman, right? He's an ordinary person, the one true man, compared to everyone else who's fake. I mean, if you want to take the name literally like that. But yeah, it's not just about the TV aspect, it's about life itself. So Seahaven is an analogy for society, and some of the dialogue is written at an incredibly high intellectual level. I always forget the screenwriter's name, even. It's Nicholas something, I think. And I don't know, it's an original screenplay. It's not based on anything. It's not like an adaptation of a book or something. So it's definitely the greatest original screenplay ever from that perspective. Like, how do you just write that, when it's so deep and so insightful and so in-depth? But yeah, the point is, it's not about just reality TV. It's about life itself. So Truman is the everyman. He's you and me and everybody in society. The show and Seahaven represents society itself, not just the world of fiction and Hollywood and all that. So it represents society and life itself. And so look at it this way. The conflict of the story isn't Truman discovering that his life is a TV show, or even why he discovers that. The conflict of the story is that he's having a midlife crisis the same way that people do in society itself, even if their life isn't a TV show. And so why does he have this? And that's how he basically discovers it, right? He wants to go to Fiji and he wants to do all these things. That's how he starts to discover. That's how he starts to discover that his life is a TV show. So in other words, he might have noticed some weird things before, but that wouldn't have bothered him, or he would have never discovered it then, right? If he throughout his life normally. It's because he's having a midlife crisis, actually, that now he starts to notice things, that now he starts to discover them, or now he starts to push the boundaries, right? So he was content maybe most of his life, and he never would have noticed, and he never would have cared, right? So he's having a midlife crisis, the same sort of midlife crisis that you would have in real life, in society, that people do have, right? So now you're seeing the analogy that it's not just about, it's about a show. It's about, again, Truman is everybody, the everyman, like you and me. Seahaven is society that we're all in. And the conflict is that everything is sort of set on rails and in stone for you. You're born somewhere, then you go to school, right? You're raised by your parents. You're too young to even know what's going on. So a lot of things are determined by your parents. Then you go to school, then you get a job, then you go get married, whatever, white picket fence, you have a house, and then you grow old and you die. So in other words, it's like very on rails. It feels like everything is predetermined for you. It feels like everything significant is already chosen and set in stone. And so you're like just this almost passive participant, just making some minor choices along the way of what you want to do. And so that sense of lack of control and the fact that everything is set in stone for you is the same conflict of the midlife crisis, that you want to break free from that and self-actualize a bit and not just be a drone to the system. So again, that would apply in both cases, not just to the TV show that he's a part of, but that just mirrors and mimics society. So that's what it's really about. It's not actually about a TV show or reality TV or cult of personality or celebrity culture. That's just a pretense. That's just a front. It's actually about society itself and the cognitive dissonance and the midlife crisis that you might have, and the fact that, society is on rails, and the fact that everything is set in stone and predetermined for you, and the fact that that same conflict that he's having, everybody has. Because again, you're born in a certain area, then you live in that area. You didn't choose any of that. You don't choose your family. You don't choose where you were born. You don't choose a lot of things about yourself, even what race you are, things like that. So everything is on rails. You didn't choose any of that. And then by the time you are old enough to choose something, you're already in school and you have to do that. That's already determined for you. And then, you do a job and that's all set in stone for you. And then, you get married, get a white picket fence and a family, and that's set in stone. And, like, everything is just set in stone, and it feels like it's already, yes, you get to choose a little bit within that, like, who specifically do you want to marry out of these people in your local area or whatever. But, like, the process feels so set in stone that that's the real deeper meaning that I interpret from it. So that's why it's the best movie ever. That's why it's my favorite movie ever. Never mind the fact that it's just entertaining, it's well paced, it has some game theory, like where he, it's not just random stuff. There'll be some like strategy going on. He leaves like that doll to make it seem like he's asleep to escape. And, there's great images, like when he crashes into the sky, even though it's going to happen. That moment kind of shocked me, where like he's sailing along and he has that great moment of strength to show, I'd rather die, you're going to have to kill me, that they try to drown him, and then he keeps going, raising the sail. The soundtrack's one of the best soundtracks in movie history by Philip Glass. Some great, Father Colby's Preaching is a great track. Raising the Sail is a great track. Truman Sleeps is a great track. That sounds almost like Carly Commando's Every Day. And then, again, the performances are good. Ed Harris is like a godlike figure up in the sky, looking down, controlling everything. Christoph, eye in the sky. So it's almost like some religious themes there, and that he's like this godlike figure. And that moment was a great shock and a great image of him crashing into the sky, where, it's going to happen because it's a set, but then just to see it was actually a shocking, mind-blowing moment in cinema for me. I'm seeing him sailing along, and then I hear it and I see that, and it's like, to see that moment of him crashing in the sky for the first time actually blew my mind. And then, again, some of the dialogue is super deep, like, you've never been to Fiji. That's why people go places, because they've never been there. Again, it's not because it's a TV show. He doesn't know that yet. And he's not even, take away even anything suspicious. He wants to do it just because he wants to do it. The same way that you in your ordinary life might want to do something like that. You want to go, you want to travel, you want to break free of the monotony and the, everything being set in stone in front of you. And so that's the power of it. Let me think of some of the best lines, like, and there's certain things you notice on like multiple viewings, like the camera angles are all, maybe not all of them, but they could be interpreted, like where the camera is actually a character and the camera is a villain, because it's actually every camera angle and shot that you see is actually a real camera within the show, that's how the audience is watching Truman. Right? So you get all these weird angles, like inside of a sign or inside of the store, it'll be like, hidden behind some of the products, right? You'll see that, the camera angle in the store is like, we're catching Truman walk through and we're seeing it from like inside of some, cinnamon roll tray, or, what I mean? Like there's cameras in the world, and the camera angles that you're seeing as the audience are the cameras that the audience would be seeing there too. So that's another nuanced element. Again, stuff like this you notice on multiple viewings, that I've seen it obviously many times as well. And then, like, I've seen Sleuth at least 5 times. I've seen Amadeus probably at least like 5 times, I think, too, fully. And then I think I've seen The Truman Show probably 7 times, but full times. And again, I've seen certain scenes a lot. But yeah, like, let me go through some of the best lines too. But basically, it's an analogy for society itself. And again, the trigger point is not so much that it's a reality TV show, but a midlife crisis and trying to break free from again, that same structure that, society is basically Seahaven. Society is everything set on rails. Everything is controlled. You're not really free. So you might think, the issue with Truman is that his life is a TV show. That's the only problem. But no, you realize, wait a second. Your life is like that too. And my life and everyone's. We're all like that. We just don't realize it because, instead of a TV show, it's society, which is also artificial. It's a construct. It's, heavily controlled, heavily on rails. So that would almost be an ironic sequel that I could make instead of The Truman Show, The Truman World, or The Truman Life, where, or even that namesake, I like The Human Show instead of The Truman Show, like where he escapes and then he realizes society is no better, and then he helps people wake up to the indoctrination of society because now he's seen it from that analogy, that microcosm. So, Ed Harris says, Seahaven is the way the world should be. And then, you never had a camera in my head, Truman says towards the end. Right? Like, that's a really deep line. You never had a camera in my head because you watched everything he's done, but you never knew what he was actually thinking all this time. And then, you have like the benevolent hand of God trying to stop you. Like, it's for your own good. If you try to leave society, this is what it'll do. It'll try to convince you and persuade you and bribe you. But then if everything else fails, it'll try to kill you or stop you. The way, he's controlling the weather and shit like that. We can't let him die in front of a live audience. He was born in front of a live audience. Like, there's a certain resonance to it. Like, it just understands. Like, I can't even explain. Everything is just so on the nose of, like, it checks every box. It does everything with its subject matter that it could possibly have done in a mere 90 minutes of screen time, right? So many movies are like that. Like, it'll be a premise picture, like, where, it's like, it's a cool premise, it's a cool idea, but then it doesn't explore it fully enough. This does exactly that. Like, it does everything that you could want. So what are some of the other good lines? Like, a lot of innuendo, subtext, double meaning in all 3 of these movies. Again, with the class wars of Sleuth, with the detective, battle of wits that they're kind of poking at each other. In Amadeus, with the jealousy and the, other existential conflict he's having with God. So there's a lot of double meaning in that. And of course in this, like, a lot of double meaning for the fact that, his life is just what it is, but also for the fact that it's a TV show, but also for the fact that, it even reflects things in society. I think that's one of the most beautiful achievements. Like, how can you make something that tells you and observes society so well without making it obvious? So, where Seahaven is a microcosm of society, basically. So that element is noteworthy because, let me go through a few lines though. Like, you never had a camera in my head. Seahaven is the way the world should be. I don't know. There's just so many interesting why do people want to go somewhere? That's why people want to go somewhere, because they've never been there. As in, right, his wife questioning, why do you want to go to Fiji? You've never been there. Yeah, that's why I want to go. That's why people want to go places, right? It's like this quest of the human spirit. It's not about the TV show. It's not about that being the issue. It's like, even if he wasn't on a TV show and he lived like a similar life in a small town, whatever, he would want the same thing. He wants to break free. He wants to, do something else. He wants to self-actualize. He wants to go on a vacation. He wants to not feel like everything is on rails and predetermined for him, the way that people often do feel like that in society. So, again, it's the quest of the human spirit more that drives him to do that. It's midlife crisis that drives him to do that, things that people experience in normal society, not so much just, the fact that he's on a TV show. I think if you see it only as that, it's still an entertaining movie. That's why it succeeds, right? It's not pretentious, it's not overwritten, and it manages to touch on these big themes anyway too. But that's the point, is like, without being that way, it succeeds as an entertainment and a satire on that, like reality TV, but it also succeeds on the deeper existential level of a analogy to society itself.